Hello, and welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Hilliard, and I am joined once again by William Gallagher. Our sponsor this week is ZocDoc, and if you are a paid premium subscriber, you get Apple Insider Plus, and this week we're going to be talking about, why we like Apple in the first place. We've had a similar topic to this before, but this is going to be in direct contrast to our last week's topic, which was things we dislike about Apple. So we kind of wanted to counterbalance that a little bit of more of why do we even support this company in the first place? Is it their ethics? Is it their technology? A little bit of both. There's a lot going on here. So pay a little bit, become premium subscriber, get the ad-free feed, and you'll get to hear that conversation. But how you doing, William?
You can't ask William any questions. You don't have permission to open that file. Sorry, I've been getting that error running a shortcut. My Mac and my shortcut telling me I cannot open my own file because I don't have permission. And, I know we're going to say good things about Apple, but that bad one has been driving me spare for the last month or so. And I've just had it 4 times today for no apparent reason. I'm just going to end rant. Otherwise, I'm fine. How are you?
I think we should be able to change those prompts to open with, "Sorry, Dave, I'm afraid
yes,
I can't do that." Everything's going good here. I'm excited. I ordered an iPad Mini 7, but we'll get to that in a moment. Yes.
Oh, I want to hear about that. Yes.
But before we talk about anything, I realized last week we mentioned Submerged, Elevated, and the Super Bowl 4-minute special arrived on Vision Pro, but I hadn't had a chance to watch them yet. Well, I have now seen them. And, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about them before we move on.
Great. Can I just remind you, I cannot see it because I haven't got an Apple Vision Pro. So, don't make this sound too good. All right.
I have wondered if Apple would ever, and I guess they wouldn't, consider maybe releasing a 2D version of these things because they would work in 2 dimensions. They would. They're flat. It would lose some of the spectacle, but it's not like some secret thing that it's just unknown to the 2-dimensional plane. You can only see it in 3D. I'm sure this is all very promotional, but as we go further down this rabbit hole of developing content for Vision Pro, will there be a day where a full-length movie is released and the only way you can watch it is on an Apple Vision Pro? That would be an interesting thing, but it reminds me too, though, 3D movies exist, right? If you don't own a 3D TV, there's no way to watch it in 3D, but that doesn't take away from the fact that movie exists and people can watch it. But I guess because the medium is so different, Apple really wants to promote that, hey, Apple Vision Pro, this is the only way you get this content. But we'll see how they handle that strategy going forward.
Yeah, I would like to say that every time 3D films come out, and it's a cyclical fad every 10, 20 years or something, they're always a bit rubbish, really, and then they go away again. What I heard about Submerged in particular is that this really does make use of 180-degree views of things. So it seems like it's very 3D. So
the director was the first person who actually seemed to know what they were doing in Vision Pro space as far as spatial video. The other things that we've watched on Apple Vision Pro, fine. There's a few of them that are breathtaking. The Wild with the rhinos was a lot of fun. They did a good job picking their camera angles. Those were very deliberate. The Adventure with the person walking across the tightrope, those were good, deliberate camera angles. They felt correct. But this was the first dramatic story where the camera kind of not only had to change multiple times throughout, it also had to move in certain scenes, and they just handled it brilliantly. The framing and everything was just right, and there's a lot of shots you would never see on a movie screen, maybe not unless it was a very specific kind of film, right? It reminds me of Severance. Not Severance, S-word.
Silo?
No. Servant.
Slow Horses? Oh, no. So I'm going through all the S's. Okay.
So it reminds me a lot of Servant. M. Night Shyamalan, for some reason, and I like this deliberateness. He spent a lot of time, Servant would actually make a really good Vision Pro film, actually. He'd have to just go record the entire show. Go ahead, M. Night Shyamalan, go ahead. It's an excellent show. Go watch it. But there's a lot of just tight, close-up, almost uncomfortable angles of people of the characters talking into the camera, not into the camera, but they're performing inches away from, it feels like, from the camera, and you're just getting every pore of their face as they're reacting to what's going on around them. These tight shots would work excellently in Vision Pro, and that's what they did in Submerged. You get a lot of the guy walking around, and then get real in close to where the light and shadow, the detail in his skin is just pronounced, or you're behind his head, and they use bokeh excellently, telling you focus here, and you're looking at him looking around, but you can also look around him and see in the background that there's someone sleeping in their bed or whatever. It's just really well done. The direction is awesome. The storytelling is great. It might be a little slow paced, but I think they wanted to make it as long as they could. So there are moments where the characters are just standing and looking around as noises are happening, just kind of giving that creep factor, giving you that claustrophobia of being underwater in a submarine. They captured everything well. And Mike actually wrote about this being a subsailor. I was in the Navy too, but I was surface fleet. I've been on submarines, and being on a submarine was enough for me to say I don't want to be on a submarine, so I chose not to.
I'm conflicted here slightly because new format, new platform, you want it to use that, you want it to be for that platform, not just some sort of 3D-ified thing. But also, I don't want to be in the middle of a story and think, oh, that's a nice shot. I want to be completely carried away by the story for it.
Of course I was observing these things purposefully, but it was immersive. Like you could definitely settle into this and just watch it, of course.
Okay. You're saying that they wanted to make it longer. Ordinarily, the way you make that longer is you write it longer. Did the story feel like... was it the right length for the story they told?
The pacing was excellent. Yeah, everything worked. They did a great job. The first half is essentially this man wakes up in his rack, and he just kind of is contemplative of sounds. And honestly, I've had the same feeling waking up on a carrier in the middle of the night. All the lights are off. The red lights are on. When you're out at sea, red is the shortest distance of light travel. So all the lights are red at night to limit your sight distance on the water. So when you get out of bed, all the lights are red in the hallways and everything like that. And everyone's asleep, so you hear every sound, the waves outside, the creaks, the crawls and taps. If you're being pinged by a sonar, you can hear the pinging off of the hull. It's kind of wild. There's a lot of noise associated with being out to sea, and and being underwater on top of that, of course, you're going to hear even more sound. So they captured that perfectly, and just he's looking around and hearing these noises. They notice someone's missing from their rack, so he goes and starts walking the hallways and just kind of like looking around, like, where's this guy? And he finds him in the galley, of course, stealing some food, some very lovely looking gherkins. I love gherkins, but he's like, dude, live a little, eat some food. And they have a conversation, and this conversation through the Vision Pro, excellent. I don't want to go into every moment. It's just that opening bit worked for what it was. It was nice and slow. It gave you a set piece. It let you see everything everywhere that was going to be happening. Let you kind of get to know the character a little bit. He seems to be on the skittish side and all of that stuff. And then suddenly, bam, they're hit by something, and battle stations are called, and everything comes alive. And I have been in these situations before, not under attack, so to speak. I've never been on a vessel that was under attack. We've been threatened multiple times, but nothing this drastic. They'd been hit by a depth charge is what's happened in the story, even though I don't think anyone explicitly says it. Anyway, they run to their battle stations, and just I'm having flashbacks to
Wow.
being on fire detail and having to run out of my bed, go and put on a fire suit and get ready to go fight a fire, or just things, or having to run to the emergency generators and go through the startup sequence and being ready to connect to the electrical circuits at any moment because one of the reactors might have had to shut down, right? Like this kind of feeling, this just suddenness out of the middle of nowhere. It's completely peacefully dark and quiet to everyone's running and yelling at each other orders to get things done. And then, so they obviously had some military advisors. And then finally, they get to a torpedo room, and it just how they're relaying orders and speaking to each other. It was all very well done. And ultimately, the ship starts flooding. They have to escape. So it's just a very good, tight 17 minutes, and they fill it out very well. It's just all the little points, and I can see more content being made for this platform in this way.
See, I listen to you, and I'm thinking how similar our backgrounds are. I mean, I'm flashing back to paper cuts, sprained wrists, typing, and stuff like that.
It's not as glorious as it sounds, I promise.
Okay, it's glory is not the word I was thinking of for it. Frightening was the word.
Yeah, but exactly. It's it was a job, and engineering in its own right can be wild. I've been in the steam side of the plant, as we refer to it, and have a steam line rupture occur. I wasn't in the room. Thankfully, I was in the electrical room. But once the temperatures dropped, because it was a secondary steam line rupture, so it wasn't too dangerous. Right. It just allowed a lot of steam to get into the room, and it was essentially raining inside of the compartment, and it's kind of crazy to see something like that.
Well, one quick question about all this, because this is important. Is this film left in such a way that there could be submerged to the sequel?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's clearly just a short story, and they had a lot of fun, and I like how they filmed it. Unless Tom Hanks shows up and rescues them or something, I don't think there's going to be any more from these characters.
Okay.
Just excellent all the way around. I would love to see more short films like this, but I'm very interested now. Let's push it up to 30 minutes. What about an hour and a half? Right? Can we get James Cameron to film an Avatar, something silly?
Right. Okay. I was with you to that minute, but all right.
It's a joke. No, seriously. Like I want to see what a full length film looks like here, and I can only imagine it costing $20 billion, because this feels like something that is going to be very difficult to create on a larger scale. It would have to be there's films that come to mind, and we can move on from this topic because I know I went into a lot of detail here, but it was very enjoyable. If you have a Vision Pro, please go watch it, or maybe see if an Apple Store employee will let you sit there for 17 minutes and watch a film.
I never thought of that. Yes. Right. Excellent. Oh, I might ask that. Okay. I like films that are, the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, all that stuff. I can't imagine Apple filming one of those in this format because it wouldn't really have the promotional spectacle that it sounds like this did.
Things come to mind. I could see Ex Machina. If anyone's ever seen that film, it's it could easily take place inside of Vision Pro because you're basically following this character room to room, and it's a lot of discussion based stuff. It's a kind of thriller where a Mark Zuckerberg-esque person living out in the middle of nowhere invites a man to come and see his creation, and it's a Android like creation that he's trying to get it to pass like Turing, all that stuff. Like anyway, it's an interaction. He has conversations with it, but the special effects are very ramped up, so it's just a very beautifully shot film as well. But I could see that style of film being Apple Vision Pro. There's so many things like this. Like I would love a thriller in Vision Pro. Could you imagine a short like Alien film, right? Like Alien is an alien.
Yes.
Ridley Scott. Could you imagine that kind of claustrophobic inside of the hull of the spaceship, hearing the creaks and crawls around you, something's moving the ventilation shaft, something jumps down behind you, right? Like that kind of presentation inside of Vision Pro. There's so many ways you could use this platform. I'm very excited for it, and I'm glad that we're finally seeing the stuff come out. Elevated, great. Just wanted to mention that was cool. And then, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'd forgotten about the other two. I was so into this one. But it just occurs to me that there you are enjoying this wraparound, full frame, absolutely everything, absorbing situation, screens in your face, and then you went and bought the smallest iPad possible. I'm interested in that decision making.
Yeah, so we can move on. I just wanted to mention the Super Bowl thing. Cool, but that it's a sport. When they nail how to get that to happen live or near live, it is going to change the game, literally. Like people will buy Vision Pro just to watch sports. It is phenomenal being on the goal side or in the end zone, I suppose, being football, and seeing them kick a field goal, right? Like there's just so much to this that is excellent, but it's also 4 minutes it took them like 6 months to make. It's madness. But moving on, Vision Pro, I'm still enjoying it. It's actually really great. I just wish we could get the ball rolling a little bit faster. iPad mini, out of nowhere. I just happened to roll out of bed the other day and see, oh look, there's an iPad mini available.
It's the start of a song, isn't it? Woke up this morning, there's a new iPad. I'll buy it. Okay, a short song. Then, was it as instant for you as that? Exists, buy. Yeah.
I kind of waited around because I wanted to see what would pop up because inevitably companies have deals and different things. Apple's trade-in option was actually kind of mediocre for my existing iPad mini, and I have no idea what to do with this thing. Right, I have the iPad mini 6, 256 gigs. I think it was $799 at that price at launch 3 years ago. So I was just like, I can't sell this thing. The battery is exhausted. Like I use it continuously, and anytime it's off the charger, if I'm actively using it, it will die within about 4 or 5 hours. It is completely ramped to exhaustion.
I mean, I'll look after it if you need somewhere to keep it. But
well, Best Buy popped up, and luckily they offered $120 more than Apple did. So Apple was offering something like $230. Best Buy said, we'll give you $350 for it. So I went ahead and did the trade-in and got the 512 gigabyte iPad Mini 7.
iPad Mini, doesn't it start at $499? So yes. Best Buy is offering a trade-in of, how much did you say? $350?
Yes, but you would be trading from a 256 to a 128 if you went that route. Okay. Yeah, because mine was the higher storage tier.
That's still that's a big trade-in value.
It is excellent.
I forgive you for not just sending it to me like any good person would. Okay, right. So, if you don't mind me asking, how much does that the new iPad cost?
Something around eight something after tax, $830. And then the $350 will come off, and I owe something in the $400s. Again, good deal all around. I'm happy with it. I was ready to just go buy it, so I'm happy that I got that trade-in value that was worth something. Because selling it, I would have felt bad selling it to someone because I would have said, "Go get a new battery put in immediately," because it's worthless without a new battery. Or I would have had to have put a battery in, something like that. Like I didn't feel right selling it in the condition it was in. Like it's meant on the externally. It's just that battery is just completely murdered.
It's just, I remember when the iPad mini first came out, it was very clearly the iPad for people who couldn't afford an iPad. And then that changed. And I think it changed with the 6. It became this really good iPad. But also the price. Yeah, the price was suddenly very expensive for it. It's like they realised the size was a boon, not a whatever the opposite of a boon is. And it sounds like it's continued that now, but you've managed to get a good deal.
Yes. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about the discourse around this device. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the world's just incredibly cynical, and maybe it's always been cynical, and I'm always just kind of, I shouldn't be shocked by it anymore. I mean, especially being in the Apple space for as long as I have been, I've seen these kinds of reactions before, but I was kind of taken aback. Just seeing everyone saying, wow, this is a wasted upgrade. I guess we'll wait till 2027 for a real iPad update. And it's just like, I get it, but also what people were expecting and this is where my confusion comes in, is like an iPad Mini Pro. They were like, where's the promotion? Did you address jelly scrolling? Why is the USB port still slow? All these things. Well, they did update the USB port. It went from 5 to 10 gigabits per second, but Touch ID is still on the button. Why isn't it, why didn't we move any of these specs along? It's like, okay, in 2021, when they updated the iPad Mini, they said, here's the iPad Air, but smaller. And to be fair, at the time, it was very surprising. They put that year's iPhone chip into the iPad Mini. So that was a difference, and it was a chipset better than the iPad Air at the time before the iPad Air got an M1. I think the M1 iPad Air came almost immediately after that or at the same time. But anyway, like, it was a surprising update overall. It was just a good redesign, well made, just almost unexpected. Desirable but unexpected. Then it took 3 years to update, and now we're getting last year's chipset, the A17 Pro, and it appears to be the lesser version of that. Maybe the cores are a little shuffled or whatever, but it's not the A18 or whatever that the iPhone 16 has. And that's pretty much all that changed. And the things that changed with it are the things that the A17 Pro brings, like Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3. Nothing else changed overall. Fine. It was a chip bump. The display is the same, the design is the same, but were people really expecting some major redesign? This is the redesigned iPad. It just got redesigned. So unless they dramatically changed the display technology and shrunk the bezels, nothing else was going to change about this device.
Apparently it supports Apple Intelligence, so does that mean it has more RAM than the older model?
It's just the A17 Pro. These are all features due to A17 Pro coming to the iPad. I think it has the same amount of RAM, which I think the minimum is 8 gigs for Apple Intelligence, and iPads have been coming with that for a while. Maybe they bumped. Oh, right. Maybe I'm incorrect, and it was 6 gigs before, but it's whatever it is. It's what it needs for Apple Intelligence, so that's fine. But and we get the hardware accelerated ray tracing and everything else the A17 Pro brings with it.
The very first thing I heard was, ooh, iPad Mini. And then the second thing I heard was, binned chips or something. Like whatever didn't work for the iPhone has been bunged in this instead. Is that fair?
Well, so the thing that's annoying here is, okay, Apple... none of this is surprising. This update is not surprising. I don't know why people are reacting the way they are. They took the chips they're no longer using for the iPhone, and they've made cheaper. They have them in bulk. They're sitting in warehouses, and they're sticking them in the iPad. That's it. That's what Apple does. That's what Tim Cook's Apple does. They take the supply chain and make it efficient to a fault, and shove things downstream. And the iPad Mini, I guess Apple decided, doesn't need an M series chip, and they're probably already constrained as it is on building those A18 Pros. So why limit the iPhone market where they're selling every one that they make already, and try and dwindle that supply when they need to be ramping up that supply? So it's especially with the nanometer technologies that we're dealing with and everything, it makes sense that they went with last year's chipset. They went with the bare minimum to get Apple Intelligence for this iPad, which I'm curious how that is going to feel on this particular device, because it is not interacted with a mouse and keyboard, but it's also not an iPhone. So what in between is it going to play? But I personally was not disappointed by these specs. The resolution of the display didn't need to get better. It could have shifted to OLED, I suppose. It could have increased the refresh rate, but those are obvious future upgrades in the next generation. But for me, the iPad Mini 6 was already a perfect device. Like, it's a 5 out of 5, 100%. Its lifespan, the daily use of it, reading books, playing these smaller games, interacting with social media, like its use cases were built. Like it is the best iPad as an iPad that I've used in a long time because of its size and use cases. So,
are you an Apple Pencil user?
Yes. Well, I guess I don't really draw, but I do use it.
Right. So did you, I presume the new iPad mini supports the new Apple Pencil. Did you already have that?
Yes, I have the Apple Pencil Pro, and up till now I've had to use two different Apple Pencils, so now I'll be able to switch to just having one.
Right. Yes.
But I just want to say, like, guys, if you're happy with your iPad Mini 6, the iPad Mini 7 you don't have to do anything. But if you're like me and you've used this thing continuously for 3 years, you might be eyeballing a battery update. Well, go pay to get your battery changed if you're happy with the specs in the Mini 6. I personally have not been happy like recently with the specs. It's getting older. The new games are coming out that it can't run. Right, like this iPad Mini 7 will be able to run Resident Evil 7, right? It'll be able to run those AAA titles that Apple's been releasing for iPhone and iPad. It'll have access to Apple Intelligence, right? No one's really talking about what the spec update brings to this platform that wasn't there before. You're going to get the new YouTube related, what is it called, built-in systems, right? The A15 could not directly decode or whatever it is. It's like hardware decoding of YouTube. I forget the spec, but it's whatever junk YouTube uses. They built that into the A17, so YouTube's going to run more efficiently. So you'll get a better battery life watching YouTube videos, for example, or certain streaming services like Netflix uses the same engine or whatever. The name is escaping me, but games will run better. Your battery life again will be improved because of it. Hardware accelerated ray tracing. It is a 2-year jump in chipset, but that chipset jump is significant in this particular device because of what it didn't have before and what it has now. So I wouldn't call this. It is a boring update as far as things go. It is literally just a chipset and a small tweak to the camera, but it is still like evolutionary in a way that I appreciate as an iPad mini user who, I mean, the thing is inexpensive from the grand scheme of things. There's people out there that'll buy the new MacBook every 3 years for $2,000. We're talking about $500 to $800 for this one. And so $200 a year, you're getting, basically a lease, if you want to talk about it that way. And now you have this much better chipset and a higher storage capacity that can run better games and just perform better overall. And I bought that in a second.
As I think I might establish every time I talk to you, or frankly even strangers in the street, I am extraordinarily technical. I am processor minded, specifications. I wake up thinking specifications. So of course the question for me, the one thing you have not covered, is what colour did you go for?
Space gray. I mean, the colors just are non-existent on these devices for some reason.
Oh, that's the only reason I'm not buying. Yeah, I'm not.
That iPad Air that released a few years ago was peak color for iPad, and they've never returned to it at all. Yeah, I don't mean to be defensive or defending this device. I was just very surprised by the rhetoric, and I suppose I shouldn't be anymore. But it's just people that I see that enjoyed the iPad Mini 6 were just utterly disappointed by this release, and it confused me because I was excited by this release. It's just like, finally, I get to get a new battery again, but on top of that, all these new specs. Like, this is great.
I fancied it the second I heard it was out, and then I heard some of the complaints, and I still fancied it. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors. Choose the right one for your needs and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, from eye care to skincare, and much more. If I were living in the States, I would use ZocDoc, and I don't fully understand why anyone wouldn't. US friends have told me, for instance, how without things like ZocDoc, it's incredibly hard to just find a doctor. Now, it's not as if there aren't enough doctors, but still, finding one who is near you, who provides the treatment you need, and crucially, who takes your insurance is startlingly complicated. Whereas with ZocDoc, you know that they take your insurance because it tells you, or you can just have ZocDoc only show you those doctors who do take your insurance. Cut that list down to doctors you can actually use, and then you can have ZocDoc show you ones in specific locations or with certain specialisms. And every time, ZocDoc will also show you reviews from verified patients. That means you get a feel for what any given doctor is like, and that's important. You need a doctor that you feel comfortable discussing your medical needs with. So, ZocDoc is about finding the right doctor in every sense. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So, stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's I keep doing that. That's ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider. ZocDoc.com/AppleInsider. And thank you to ZocDoc for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. But we just talked then about colours and different iPads and things. It's looking reasonably likely now that this is the only iPad launch this month, and in fact that there may not be the expected Apple event. But I don't know, rumours, do you trust them? What do you think? Are we going to see an M5, M6 iPad Pro released with a press release next week or something like that?
It's interesting. Apple is just kind of always doing their own thing, and it wasn't 2 weeks ago that Gurman was like, yeah, the October Apple event, iPads, Macs, the whole shebang, and now we're talking about pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that. Apple likes press releases. With the M4 chipset, if it's coming to MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, I don't think it's coming to Air yet. It would be too short-cycled. They already did a short cycle for MacBook Air. So if MacBook Pro was to get an M4, they might just do a press release for that because it's not like hugely different from M3 generation. They just want to get off of that node where they're using that that generation of 3 nanometer. They want to get away from that. So they would quietly bump it up to M4, and it probably wouldn't. It would be a chip change, basically. I would expect, and so I feel like they could easily get away with that in a press release. Redesigned Mac Mini could easily happen in press release. I know people have said, no way, that something like that would get screen time. Didn't we say that? And then Apple released, was it the redesigned MacBook Air or something over? There was something recent in the last couple of years. They did a press release that was just unheard of. Well, didn't they do the iPads over press release? Like, there's something anyway that we were just like, there's no way there's going to be an event for it, and they just dropped it, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah. So never put Apple in a box that way. They'll press release whatever the heck they want. I don't think there's going to be an event. The earnings call is on Halloween. So last year when they did the spooky event, it was on a Tuesday, and the earnings call was that Thursday. So they're not allergic to doing two things in a row in a single week, but we haven't heard anything yet, and it would be uncharacteristic of Apple to wait this long.
I can't believe the Spooky Fast event was 1 year ago. It feels so much longer, and they've done so much since, have they? I think they've released everything new except the Apple Car, I think. And I know you know more about this than I do, because we finally had, I think, absolute proof, nail in the coffin, Apple Car dead because of news this week. Isn't that right? Or am I overreaching here?
I feel like we're never going to stop talking about Apple Car, because it's just it keeps coming up. People just can't. Mark Gurman can't stop talking about Apple Car, I think, more specifically, but it's just. Earlier this year, February, we heard that potentially Apple Car was disbanded, and it seemed like it to be true because it kind of just disappeared. We finally got signs from the outside regulation information that Apple's no longer asking, like they let their licenses expire for autonomous testing in California. Great. So that is the surest sign yet, the most real, other than just some person in a newsletter saying that they stopped doing this. This is the most real thing yet that we've seen. That's just no, it's just gone. It's not happening. Confirmation. And then on top of that, we got the strangest story Wednesday evening of for some reason this story needed to exist, but. I guess this is for investors who really like BYD, this Chinese company that makes autonomous electric, or they're making electric vehicles anyway. And they're they're the biggest electric vehicle manufacturer in China, and they surpassed Tesla briefly globally. So they're a big deal. And Apple apparently worked with them on a battery. Apple approached BYD nearly a decade ago. Went through years of partnership in manufacturing these custom blade batteries that would be used for the Apple car. Then Apple just jumped ship and said, never mind, we're not going to do this with BYD. And they shopped for other people to give them a battery until ultimately they discontinued the Apple car project. So I don't understand the purpose of this story other than maybe stock market stuff, but here it is.
Well, Apple, separate thing. Today, as we record this today, I read what I thought was a really interesting patent document about the Apple car. It didn't say it was the Apple car, of course. It never says the Apple car. I don't think this one even alluded to vehicle, but all the nice drawings for it were of a car dashboard and what it would have been like as you connected your iPhone to it, or the error messages if something was going wrong. Some of them were a bit naff. Actually, so yeah, but overall, the display and how it would have done, it looked really nice. And somebody has patented, or is actually applying to get a patent on it, even though their work will never see the light of day anywhere else. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, people talk about the Apple car as if it's dead, and I think the best way to say it is all of this research and all of this investment, $10 billion of investment over 10 years. It didn't go to nothing. There's definitely still maybe a small team, maybe 3 people at Apple still working on automotive things. It's just there's no longer a quote unquote Project Titan, at least right now. They're carrying on. There's probably a portion of their like John Gianandrea's artificial intelligence and machine learning division probably still has a couple of people dedicated to developing self-driving autonomy systems. Like that kind of research absolutely still happening at Apple. It's just there's no longer a greater a Project Titan would have a product in mind saying Apple Car will eventually be made and released. That going away doesn't mean this type of research stops. So I expect we'll still see patents for vehicle stuff for years to come. And Apple could eventually revisit a car in the future.
I should say actually the patent I read right after that one, unbelievably I thought, was actually for the 2013 Mac Pro. So they're still trying to do things for that. Course. 11 years later.
They're going to fix it.
Well, yes. I laughed when you said that about 3 people for it, because I just had this image suddenly of somewhere in Apple Park of 3 witches around a cauldron saying, when we shall meet again with a self-driving car. Anyway, yes, okay. Really sad, actually, that the licenses were dropped, because it feels like, yeah, that really is the end of it. Yes, that's it. Or end of an era, perhaps, because they didn't get anywhere. But you made the point then, and I think you've said it before, that the research doesn't, vanish, that it goes where. And I think we've even seen examples of how car research affected the Apple Vision Pro. I think so. Nothing goes to waste at Apple, except air power.
Operating system development for the vehicle absolutely influenced the real-time operating system necessary to run Apple Vision Pro, on top of the artificial intelligence systems bearing into Apple's research for its Apple Intelligence, which brings us to a new topic. Apple put out a research paper explaining that large language models, basically, it's so funny because I've been hammering this drum for a while, and Apple just comes out and says it. There's nothing intelligent about artificial intelligence. It doesn't think. It cannot reason. And Apple has submitted a research paper saying exactly that. AI cannot reason. It cannot make decisions. It is just taking information, rolling it around, and spitting it back out in a predictive format. That is it.
It's pattern recognition. 7 million people have followed the word merry with Christmas, so let's suggest Christmas as the next thing. That's kind of at the heart of it, isn't it? I've friends who would be aghast at my saying that, but...
Well, that's more machine learning, actually. Like, the generative stuff,
Sure.
This technology is real, right? Like, it isn't like we just painted artificial intelligence over machine learning. Large language models and generative, I always get it wrong, GPT. Generative pre-trained transformers. They are real technology that do things, and they're good at what they do, but the way we've applied them with information, for instance, they're not good at it, right? They're good at taking a bunch of data and spitting out information, but that doesn't mean that information is going to be accurate or correct. So Google, for instance, has made, I think, a terrible, terrible mistake switching to a AI, right, for its search results, so that the top half of the page before you have to scroll under the fold before you even get to a real answer is taken over by what could generally be just a giant lie. You've seen these screenshots, glue on pizza. That was an old one, but more recently, I've seen people show the AI result directly contradicting the top result in search, stuff like that. Google search has gotten so bad that it's just wrong most of the time, because these things can't reason. They're just taking information and giving you basically what you said, rephrased differently. And Apple kind of going into detail here is important. And this goes back to my discussion of Apple and how they've approached AI being so different from OpenAI and Google. And I think that's an important distinction everyone needs to make when they're discussing these things.
I'm thinking of moving back to Alta Vista. Or Ask Jeeves. Do you remember either of those?
Yes.
No? Okay. No, it's been
I did.
nice.
Yes. No, yes. I was around for Ask Jeeves and briefly Alta Vista, but...
I can actually picture the moment I first heard of Google. It's in a BBC newsroom, and one of the senior editors recommended it and said something like, I know it's a silly name, but Google is the thing to try next. And we all did, and then it immediately became normal, and we did it there.
See, these systems are not immune. Like, we came up with a cute name for it, hallucination. Even Apple systems can. So right now, in 18.1's beta, you cannot generate anything from nothing. The only technology Apple's introduced so far that will generate something from nothing is Image Playground, but that isn't available yet. And even then, the control over that is very, very tight. We'll have to see how that all works, but so I can't speak to that. But right now, you can't generate anything from nothing, so you have to write your paper before you use Apple's AI on it. And I was testing the different features. I've been using Proofread to get grammatical checks, and is the comma here, is the spelling right, all these things, syntax every now and then will pop up. Great, love that. That has been very useful in my work. But I never really looked at the other tools too much, because I don't need to make my text more professional. I don't need to make it more friendly or generate a bulleted list or a table from the information that I've written. Those are interesting use cases, but they do not apply to me. But I was looking at the rewrite button. Had no idea what it did, so I selected a paragraph and told it to rewrite it, and it did what it said. It took the information in that paragraph and presented it differently. That's it. But I tested it on something that I had laying around in my notes app, where I mentioned working on my time in the Navy, mentioned working on LCUs, and the rewrite function, for some reason, decided it was going to expand that abbreviation.
Oh. Okay, given that I don't know what LCU stands for, I'm still dreading what you're going to say it thought it stood for. Liquid, cooled... No, I don't. What should it be?
It had context, right? Because I was talking about the Navy and ships.
Oh, landing craft something.
Landing craft unit. So, but you can reason and land at what makes sense for those letters, it said life cycle unit. And I had I had no reason to expand that abbreviation, but it did, and it took a wild guess, and it got it incredibly wrong.
Yes.
And that was from an on-device model provided by Apple that has no connection to the internet, no outside information. It just went for it, and it hallucinated. Now, Apple has never claimed it is immune from hallucinations. I haven't made that claim either. It's just you have to pay attention when you're using these technologies. It does happen. Now, proofread is stupid simple enough that I can't see how it would hallucinate. Like, it's going to hallucinate a comma somewhere it shouldn't be. Like, I just don't really understand how that would happen. So I feel like that's pretty safeguarded. But like the rewrite function is the first place I've seen a real possibility of a hallucination being available to Apple's devices.
I'm actually quite shocked by that because, of course, I didn't think Apple would be immune to this, but I just took it for granted it would be on the bigger things when Siri reached out to ChatGPT or other stuff like that, that's where problems would occur. Not the whole point of being built in, is it's using your information. So
I'm simultaneously writing 2 reviews right now that are heavily focused on the 18.1 release. And I'm discussing Apple Intelligence, and one of the things that I bring up is just it's important to know how these things are framed. And I think a lot of not Apple Intelligence, but artificial intelligence, a lot of this AI hype is because of bad marketing. I think we've been told a big lie, not the big lie, but a big lie of what this stuff is supposed to do, how it's going to change the world, it's going to change our life, it's going to affect us in so many ways, it's going to change how you see photography, it's going to change, like, all these just grandiose promises. And then when they ship it on Google Pixel, one of their main features is adding yourself to a photo or transcribing a phone call. Right? Like I've been going through different companies' AI like demonstration pages, and it's just mundane, simple, and straightforward stuff. Honestly, none of this stuff feels out of reach to Apple either. They just haven't done it yet on a lot of these other companies. So when I hear Apple is behind, maybe they're behind in the number of features they've released, but it doesn't feel like their technology's incapable of doing what these other companies are doing. Maybe they might do it a little worse, but we have no way of knowing until they create the technology to do a comparison. I'm very interested in comparing how the image generation works. But anyway, just wanted to say, people's expectations are so high that everything looks bad, except when they see something magical like an essay being generated from scratch or an image that never existed before being created. And that's like a wow factor, I guess. And Apple doesn't have any of those wow factors purposefully, and I honestly applaud them for that. They really restrain themselves here, and I think that's important in this.
Okay, I'm split here because I think, in a way, I may even have been right. I remember months ago thinking that, hopefully saying that this will all shake out and AI will become just like spell checking is, or something that we use to do what we need to do and get on with it, and we forget, and we will stop calling it artificial intelligence because it won't seem like a special thing. It's just ordinary.
The general population. So the reason why I bring this up is the general population has no idea what this stuff is for. I've even asked nerds. I've went to Discords where people are discussing these things and asked what is supposed to be happening with AI. What am I missing? And I just never get a real answer. It's always, either they throw marketing at me from Google or something like that, but I never really get a real answer. I haven't been able to get anyone to really, other than agreeing with my statements, I haven't had anyone step up on Mastodon or anything and say, this is what AI, like, this is what you're missing. And I think the general population is starting to feel this fatigue. It's AI fatigue, and realizing, this is just all a bunch of nonsense. This is crypto all over again. This is NFTs all over again. This is self-driving cars or whatever. Like, this is all just, they're promising, and it just doesn't exist. The things they're talking about just do not exist. And everyone's going to just move on. And I think Apple taking this approach will help save them, because everyone's going to look at Google and OpenAI and say, yeah, remember those guys promising all this nonsense? Like, I feel like they're going to feel a little burned. Of course, memories are short and they're going to move on from it and Google something tomorrow anyway. But I don't think it's going to damage any of these brands specifically. I just believe that Apple made the right choice in not trying to overhype it in the way these other companies did, because in reality, it is just honestly kind of boring, and that's okay.
I recognise this is a hot button topic for you, but I also recognise actually this is your episode, but I have another hot button topic of yours that I would just like to throw into the mix there. Carol Surface has left Apple. And hand on heart, I'm sorry to say it, I feel very rude saying this, I'd never heard of her before. But she is clearly, this is another case of someone leaves Apple, so Apple is doomed. Isn't that the way the argument goes?
It's a lot of fun, because I brought up the meme last week of Vince McMahon, and it's like clockwork, of course, because as soon as this happens, another one leaves and another thing happens, and now Mark Gurman's writing about how things are just so bad at Apple that people are just leaving after 1 year or 20 months, I suppose. And we have no idea why Carol left. We have no idea where she's going, if she's retiring. I don't know anything about this person. There's no information. This is from an internal memo from Tim Cook that leaked, I suppose. Fine.
I should say, I feel we know so little about this person. Is that why she's leaving? Hasn't made an impact.
The speculation that I've seen has been outside hires are always the shortest terms at Apple, especially the higher the position that they take from the outside. John Gianandrea is one of the few exceptions to this rule. Hiring from outside Apple to high executive positions that report to Tim Cook, these are highly demanding, incredible jobs. And maybe Carol just got her fill and wanted to move on to something else. Right.
We should save, just if not only for the record, because obviously, AppleInsider Podcast, the podcast of record. Carol Surface was the Chief People Officer. And I'm going to admit to a failure of knowledge here. I thought Deirdre O'Brien was Chief People. It turns out, of course, she was Retail and People. But now she's going to be Retail and People again. So
maybe so this is another speculation. Maybe Apple created this person, this job, thinking that they would need it, and then decided, nope, actually we don't need it. Thank you for your service. That could happen too. It happens in a lot of big companies. Yes, Deirdre O'Brien was in charge of people and retail was her title before, and then she became just retail, and now she's people and retail again. The Chief People Officer is not just HR, but that is a significant portion of it. You have to imagine HR for such a large company is a huge part of Apple. But Carol was also in charge of recruiting for the college programs that Apple has. A lot of these like interfacing elements around Apple. So literally dealing with people was her job in any aspect of the thing. I think Deirdre O'Brien was in charge of something like 77,000 people when she was leading the people division. So it's an incredible position that reports directly to Tim Cook. So who knows why or how or whatever. I don't think it spells any doom and gloom for Apple, but I do find the alarmist attitude every time someone leaves Apple is just fun. I don't think this one actually, to be fair to Mark Gurman, this one wasn't as alarmist as maybe Dan Riccio or someone else leaving Apple. It was just kind of it's kind of weird they're leaving after 20 months kind of situation. They didn't take too hard of a stance on it, but it's still just, man, every week next we'll hear that the janitor decided that they didn't like cleaning Apple Park anymore and had to depart.
Well, it's a big place. Have you tried going around that with a mop? I did just try to cheat and look up Carol Surface's LinkedIn page, but she hasn't even added Apple onto it yet. So I don't think she's a strong LinkedIn fanatic, really. But, I would have been there with the information. We don't know where she's gone to, and I thought that would give us a clue. Because there are bigger companies than Apple to go to, you can see that could easily poach her for something else. But yeah, Okay. So vacancy at Apple. That's what we're saying. Yeah.
I guess we'll go full
Possibly.
circle here. We'll open at the close. That's a Harry Potter reference. Apple Vision Pro, back at the ending here, Apple could be is rumored to, and I hate these rumors honestly, because I've literally said this 2 days on the show like last week, and then this rumor, I don't know if they're listening to me, but a $2,000 headset sometime in 2026. What? No way.
Well, Apple's known for close to halving its device product prices after a year. It doesn't keep selling things for 10 years at exactly the same price or anything like that. So I'm shocked at your suspicion.
No. It's not suspicion. It's just we have literally been talking about this since the Apple Vision Pro launched. The $2,000 ish model that is lower priced, the Apple Vision not Pro, Apple Vision Air, whatever you want to call it, has always been coming. Our time range has shrunk a little bit. I think in February we were talking about, well, it could be between 26 and 27. Now we're looking more at fall 26, which I think is reasonable. And that will get Apple Vision Pro in more hands, more of these games, more of these, all of this stuff that Apple's launching over the past year and into the next year. Because remember, 26 is 2 years from now. So they have a lot of time to release more content and get stuff out there. I think this is a reasonable timeline to see prices cut, especially if they cut out unnecessary features. They've now learned how people are using these devices, and it makes total sense. That's why I didn't even need a rumor. We've just been saying this from the start. They're going to target something around $2,000, the price of a MacBook Pro, and it's going to be around the 26, 27 range. And now we have a rumor kind of reiterating that. So cool. I'm glad to hear it.
I actually wrote a story this week about various surgeons who are using Apple Vision Pro, and they were asked about the cost of it, and they're saying, so normally we use these monitors and displays and all this. You see that monitor? $20,000. So what was the phrase? It's Apple Vision Pro is like dust on the budget.
Yes.
They called it or something.
Medical dust. The story was interesting because the surgeons were complaining about injury during work.
Yeah.
And I think people forget, because I saw some comments around it, people forget repeated stress injury and stuff like that is no joke. RSI, anywhere you have a joint in your body or anything that you're doing, if you're looking up all the time, you're going to strain yourself. Your muscles are not built for that. Your neck isn't built for that. You're going to, over time, imagine you're a surgeon. You've spent half of your life in education, and now bending over books, right? And now you're bending the opposite direction, looking up at monitors, constantly craning your head down to the person, up to the monitor, down to the person for 30 years. That is incredibly debilitating to those joints, muscles, whatever you want to say. That part of your body is just getting overstrained, overused, and it's murderous. And they retire early because it's so painful after a time that they can't lift their head anymore properly without straining themselves. So Apple Vision Pro, interestingly, lets them just look down at what they're doing and keep their head down. It's a weight on their head, but it's a different muscle group carrying that headset. And as it gets lighter, I can only imagine this getting better. So it was just an interesting story to me. I like the application here.
I love the things you don't expect, the details that are real life for some people, but that never crossed your mind for it. And it's a whole new, actually slightly humanised surgeons for me. Although there's got to be some who are thinking, why wasn't this around years ago? And others who are thinking, I was going to retire and now I can't. So it's I love when a product comes out and it has an unexpected use that in retrospect is very obvious for it, which I think happened with the Apple Watch and health and stuff, and now seems to be happening with Vision Pro. So all these people saying there's no killer app for Vision Pro, I think they're right, but there might be lots of little killer apps, and it all adds up.
Apple apparently is also working on its next product in the Vision lineup. Rumors, of course, arriving as Meta continues to talk about their glasses and Orion and everything. Fine. This one is, of course, also from Gurman. He's just a machine, just churning out all these rumors and things. But we've heard this before. I think the first Apple Glasses rumor suggested something like 2019 release. So here we are, 2027. Apple Glasses and AirPods with cameras, I suppose. Fine. Who knows? What we'll see where things end up, but 27 feels too soon, unless Apple does something like Meta, which I don't think they're going to do. I think Apple really wants pass-through glass. They don't want projectors, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, interesting. What will make me buy one? I'm assuming I had a lot more time than you to consider Apple Vision Pro because I'm in the UK. It took months and months to get here, and I the original desire, I suppose, just kind of burnt off by the time it finally came. So I went in to the demo reasonably even. It's just going in for research. I wasn't thinking of getting out my checkbook or whatever for it, but I also wasn't unwilling to do it. And I came away thinking this is deeply impressive, but I just wouldn't use it all day. Even though you were very persuasive about how much you use it, it wasn't there for me. So is it just price that stops me getting it, or is there actually just not a slot for it in my life?
I mean, to be fair, my usefulness in it comes and goes because my job requires me to do different things all the time. Apple Vision Pro is great for if right now, if all I'm doing is coming into work and covering news and writing long form about informative topics, I can be in Vision Pro the whole shift, right? But the minute I need to go hands-on with something, check out a part of a battery, or play with a keyboard, or use a game controller for my iPhone that I'm testing for review, anything like that, just the Vision Pro has to come off. So, or I've been writing a lot this past couple months. I've been writing a lot about iPhones and iPads and iPad OS and all of these things. So the Vision Pro on my head restricts me from writing about these things because I need to be using those devices. So the use cases come and go. I'm using it right now, as I have been for the podcast, because I found it's an excellent podcast tool to have access to information in front of me without having a screen to reverb off of. That's perfect use case for Apple Vision Pro. The entertainment sides of things, the games, all of these things are still useful. But as long as I'm writing and doing tasks that require me to be hands-on with something, the Vision Pro is usually off. That doesn't mean I'm not using it nearly as much. It's just the opportunities for me to use it are fewer because of just the nature of my work. But as I clear off my work list and get back to more, I can do everything on the Vision Pro, I put it back on. It's just the nature of the device until it gets, the pass-through gets to the point where it's like having my eyes, then I could see myself using a game controller or testing an object with the Vision Pro in my head. But something about it, I can compute inside of it, I can see my room in it, I can walk around in it fine, but actually like looking at a game controller in my hand, something is lost from between the real world and what's seen in the Vision Pro, because it is still just a display. So that is, I wouldn't call it a limitation, that's just the reality of the device.
I'm watching, I've had a 45-minute demonstration. They let it scope much further than the 20, 30 minutes, whatever blocked, and I didn't notice that time because I was so absorbed by it. But every time I looked through it to the Apple demonstrator person for me, it didn't even feel like I was wearing glasses. It felt perfectly, real to me. So I hadn't appreciated a resolution issue. Although now you've said it, I remember Joanna Stern, when she was reading recipes or something in her Wall Street Journal piece, she would say there was a certain point after which you couldn't read because the resolution wasn't high enough. I'd forgotten that. So you're finding it's not quite real world.
No, it's not that. It's more detail. I wouldn't say resolution as much as, I know those words might be synonymous in some way, but it's different. So you're testing this thing in an Apple store, and you're looking at a person. A person is large; they're in front of you, and you're not necessarily studying the details of their face or their clothing. They're just, a person. I can see that. Great. Like you can see their face, and they're as detailed as real life. You don't even feel like you're wearing glasses. Absolutely, the brightly lit store doesn't really deal with, you're not really running into noise or anything like that either. In my office, where there's dark wood paneling that I hate, causing the room to feel darker anyway, the Vision Pro doesn't really behave well in that lighting, to the point where it's fine. I can do what I need to do with the Vision Pro on, but if I am studying an object or holding an object or looking at something in my hands, you're losing all the small details. It just, you feel like you're not quite seeing the thing correctly. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just, you feel like you need to take the headset off to get a proper look at it. I don't know how else to say it, but otherwise it's fine. Like if you're walking around in the world, everything is crisp and clear as real life. But if you hold something up in front of your face, you're looking at it through a screen. You just immediately feel the difference on that, and it's just maybe the limitation of the technology, what we're looking at. Maybe the closer you get to an object, or the smaller details just fall away because of how it's reproducing this stuff. Who knows? But I expect it'll improve in future models. It's just one of those minute details you don't really think about. Like, I don't want to examine this keyboard or try to describe the details of it looking through the Vision Pro. I want to see it with my own eyes.
I'm not surprised when you said that about the Apple Store, and of course the bright colours. Of course you're right, but I hadn't thought about wood. So if I were one of these extremely boring British men who had a gentleman's club that they go to in London, I couldn't sit there and shut out them boring me all the time with an Apple Vision Pro. It just wouldn't work. I'm going to have to quit the club, aren't I? That I haven't joined. Okay, all right. Interesting.
It's an interesting product. I still stand by everything I've said before about it. Like, if you have the money and are at all interested, go for it. It's going to be years before a new product in this line comes. William, if you're interested in it, go on eBay and see who's selling one for like a few $100s off. It's fine. It's not. This isn't this. I would never say don't go buy Vision Pro. If you have the ability to, go for it. But at the same time, if you enjoy the workflow you have, there's no reason to drastically uproot it. Apple Vision Pro is only going to get better. These devices, there's more apps, more technologies, more things coming to it, and in a year or two's time, this is going to be the way to go. I can see this being a platform for the future. It's just right now we are still in what you would call early days, and if you are allergic to that type of early adoption issues, then stay away from it.
Noted. I'm not checking my bank balance as we speak. I'm not. I don't know why you thought that. No.
It's just it's an interesting product, and I like that Apple's doing it. I don't understand a lot, just like with the iPad Mini. I don't understand a lot of the rhetoric around it, other than people just wanting to be angry about something. I genuinely like Apple Vision Pro. I like the content being made for it. I am happy with my purchase. We're almost a year in. I did cancel my Apple Care on it because it was $27 a month, and I decided, you know what? I'm not going to break this thing, and if I do, that's on me. So I went ahead and canceled my Apple Care Plus on it, but it's fine. I really do enjoy this. It's definitely its own thing. I never went in. There's a part of me wondering if it was possible before because I hadn't used it yet, but now, after using it, I realized this isn't going to happen, and I'll say it here. I haven't, since owning it, expected that this was going to take over my workflows. This was going to replace my iPad workflow. This is going to replace my MacBook entirely. My MacBook can be augmented into it, which it's still, I honestly haven't used my MacBook for anything other than podcasting in months, but it's just, it's one of those things that I really enjoy it. It's an obvious sign of the future, and I will continue using it and hoping for improvements and looking for new apps, and this kind of interest hasn't waned at all, but I can definitely acknowledge that it cannot be my only computing device in my home, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be. And
for my part, I think I'm just going to record me going, just play it in every time. Yeah, whenever you fail to accept the wonder that is the Macintosh, you know.
Oh, I love the Mac.
That's the button.
I just don't need one.
Yeah, all right. Okay, fine. Mutter. Okay. Everybody needs a Mac. Okay.
If Apple could just get it so I can podcast from my iPad or something. I don't know. I don't know what the holdup is, but it's fine. I have a Mac for it. But on that note, I think that's the show for the week. Thank everyone for listening, and I would like to thank the sponsors once again, ZocDoc. But hey, this isn't it. It's not over. If you are a premium subscriber, we're going to get into Apple Insider Plus, or we're going to talk about Apple. But instead of saying what we dislike, we're going to talk a little bit about what we like and why we really care about this company in the first place. What do they do that just works for us? And William, where can people find you on the internet?
I think this is actually something that might come up in AppleInsider Plus, but I'm doing a new project on YouTube as part of my 58 Keys channel. So 58 Keys, 58 Keys on YouTube is a good spot for me, but otherwise, just for a natter, william@appleinsider.com is always the best for me. And same for you, or similar for you, I would imagine?
Yes, so you can definitely find me on Mastodon. I'm most active there. I help manage social media at Apple Insider, so I have Twitter open and through the Apple Insider client account. And I saw a couple of comments at one point come through like, where's Wes? Why isn't he active on his account? I just do not use X. I don't use Twitter. You can email me. If you don't have Mastodon, you can email me. That's pretty much the answer. But you can always find our email addresses at the top of every article. I'm at wes@appleinsider.com. But simply, yes, email. I love getting them. We've got a few these past few weeks. It's been really fun. I enjoy helping answer questions or talking about the show. There's also always talking about nonsense on Mastodon about Apple technology. And before we go, I did want to mention our podcasts. You can give us a review on Apple Podcasts. I always love seeing those as well. So if you don't want to talk to us there, you can talk to us through the most probably inefficient way possible, but we'll still see it. We just can't reply. The Apple Podcast app, I've asked before, please keep leaving us good reviews. I'll mention them here. We got 2 5-star reviews this week. Best podcast on Apple Tech from dbane3175. This show is both informative and very listenable for fans of all types. You will walk away with a greater appreciation of Apple products, a better understanding of their capabilities, and an honest review of what works well and where there's still room for improvement. So excellent. It's the only tech podcast I listen to entirely each week. So that was a very nice review. Thank you. And we also got TMC1003. They say they love the show, big fan of Apple Insider. They love the show and always look forward to new episodes on Fridays.
Do you know, I'm pretty sure I met TMC 1004 in a pub once. I don't think they're related at all to you.
They did mention that the podcast feed was messed up at one point, and they got ads and no after show. That was not us. I think we might have mentioned it in the in a feed somewhere, but we'll mention it here. There was an issue with Apple Podcasts. Anytime you see anything weird like that, please email us, because we catch it usually and fix it, and it requires you to delete the episode and re-download it. But Apple Podcasts is a finicky beast and can sometimes just decide to give you the wrong show, so to speak.
I can tell you more about that one. It looks to us like Apple was updating anything on its back end for it that just happened to be at the time. So the ad-free episode just kept processing for days and never completed. Which, that sounds like bad workman blaming his tools. In this case, I'm usually the bad workman, and usually it's my tools. It's me that's got it wrong, but this one time it was Apple. So give us that. Apple did it this time. The rest is me. In fact, yes. Only you, Wes, only you are flawless in this whole thing.
No, but yes, thank you for those reviews. Excellent as always. We'll happy to see more. And you don't have to leave the nice ones. If you leave a bad one, we take critiques seriously. We like seeing what people have to say. So please go give us a review and let us know what you think of the show. And I think that is it. We'll talk to you guys next week.